The special that we chose this morning kind of leads off of what we just sang. This is Christ is my firm foundation. And if you believe everything that we just said in that hymn, he is our firm foundation. Nothing can shake us if we are abiding in him. So. Christ is my firm foundation. He's the rock on which I stand when everything around me is shaken. I've never been more glad that I put my faith in Jesus, 'cause he's never let me down. He's faithful through generations. So why would he fail now? He won't. And I've still got joy in chaos, and I've got peace that makes no sense, and I won't be going under. I'm not held by my own strength, 'cause I build my life on Jesus, and he's never let me down. He's faithful in every season. So why would he fail now? He won't. He won't. He won't fail. He won't fail. Christ is my firm foundation. It's the rock on which I stand when everything around me is shaken. I've never been more glad that I put my faith in Jesus, 'cause he's never let me down. He's faithful through generations. So why would he fail now? He won't. He won't. He won't fail. He won't fail. The rain came and wind blew, but my house was built on you, and I'm safe with you, and I'm gonna make it through. The rain came and wind blew, but my house was built on you, and I'm safe with you, and I'm gonna make it through. Oh, the rain came and wind blew, but my house was built on you, and I'm safe with you, and I'm gonna make it through, and I'm safe with you, and I'm gonna make it through, 'cause my house is built on you.
Kay and Les and Finus, appreciate the special music. We're privileged to have several visitors here today. I don't want to overlook anyone, but we have a first-time visitor. His last name is McCoy. First name, I've already forgotten, you told me, but, yeah, this welcome. Yes, good to have you all here today. Appreciate that very much. And Brother Snipes is here today, visiting with us, and just a teacher of the Word. He's here today. Appreciate that. And the new couple back there, first time lived out with Watson. Your first name again, please tell me.
Brad and Autumn.
Yeah, so good to have you all here. They were here for Sunday school and everything, and they're still here, so that's good. Yes, good. We're not a perfect church, but we love Jesus and we love each other. Amen? Yeah. And this good couple back here, there's with Sandy and Alan. They're visiting with us, and he came back and prayed with us. So good to have you folks here with us. And they live actually not too terribly far from where my daughter lives. Our daughter lives. I guess, I don't know, 50, 60 miles, something like that. I'm not sure, but that's close. In the area. And so it's just good to have everybody here. And I want to say also a word of encouragement about camp. Avery was making a lot of announcements about everything coming up, and all of those are so critical, and so is camp. And we're nearing the time where we need somebody to step up to the plate and say, I'll help counsel, I'll be in charge of camp, and I'll take care of that, because our young people are already talking to me about they want to go to camp. So we need somebody to step up to the plate and help out. Maybe it could help take them over there or something like that, but we need counselors and people to help, okay? Appreciate that very much. It's so good to have the folks back here today, and somebody, the holidays, be sure and make sure you get your Mother's Day gifts. Are there still some back there? I think there are. Boy, there better be after I said that. Somebody make sure that you get some. It's so good to have you guys back. Really good to have you back. And I like visitors, because Brother Snipes came and he gave me a gift. So next time you're a visitor, bring a gift. Bring a gift. This is a good little book from Dr. Jeremiah.
Our pastor is not shy.
I'm not shy. I'm not shy. We're also very privileged to have Brother and Sister Bearfield from Hiding Place Hollow. That's missionary homes for over on 12, not very far from here really, and our church helps to support them. And so we welcome to our church today and welcome you to come and present that. And the young people are going to stay through the presentation, and then they'll be dismissed for Children's Church. So Brother Paul, if you would come, please.
I'm confused.
Pardon?
I am presenting and I am preaching, right?
You are doing both.
I'm doing it all together.
Okay.
So you were talking about the kids. So either they stay for it all or they go, because it's going to all be all wrapped
All
in
again?
once.
Okay.
So I was confused all of a sudden. I was like,
Is it something that the little kids would understand or no?
yeah.
Okay.
It doesn't matter to me, whatever.
I really want the children to stay because I want them to be aware of mission and
Sure.
serving. So let's just, and then next week I'll follow up and make sure they understand everything. Thank you.
I taught 4th and 5th grade for 24 years, so I can talk. That's the way I talk to all of adults too. So, and from the looks of this crowd, that's probably good, right? You know? All right. I noticed how comfortable he was. Now, I want to start with the word, though, with the word, because I want to talk about our ministry, but I want you to understand that this ministry comes from the word. So I want you to look in the book of 3 John, okay? That's that little one right toward the back of the New Testament right there, 3 John, okay? And that's going to be where we start, and I do thank you so much for letting us come today. We get to go, my wife and I get to go and share about Hiding Place Hollow fairly often to different churches, and it's good to see a church that loves the Lord and loves each other, and it's full. I like this. This is good. The spirit here and the friendliness that we've experienced is great. And mainly, and I'll say this more than once, thank you for already your support of Hiding Place Hollow. Some of you may not even know you do that. I don't know, but you do. And I appreciate that, and I'll be sharing with you. Okay. All right, 3 John. We're going to start in verse 5. There's only a few verses in there. It is written to a guy by the name of Gaius. Don't know a lot about him, but him and possibly he's a leader in a church, so maybe his church. So he's going to, John in 3 verses here is going to talk to this guy and probably his church as well about some people that he's going to call they and maybe use the word them and so on. I want you, as we read through this, I want you to think about who is he talking about? Who is the they that he is talking about in here? And I'm going to read from the CSB, so it may be a little different than what your version is here. But I want you to think about who's he talking about, and but don't say anything, okay? Dear friend, starting with verse 5. Dear friend, you are acting faithfully in whatever you do for the brothers and sisters, especially when they are strangers. So he's talking about brothers and sisters, which would be talking about believers, right? Fellow believers. Especially those, we're talking about those that are strangers. So they're talking about believers that a lot of the Gaius and maybe some of this church, they don't even know these people. Okay? But they've been acting faithfully toward them even though they don't know. They have testified to your love before the church. You will do well to send them on their journey in a manner worthy of God. Now think about that. These brothers and sisters, these fellow believers, they're on a journey, right? And he says, send them on their journey in a manner worthy of God, since they set out for the sake of the name, accepting nothing from pagans. So here we have fellow believers that many of they haven't met maybe or know very well, who are on a journey. They set out in the sake of the name of Jesus, right? They've gone out in the name of Jesus. Therefore, we ought to support such people so that we can be co-workers with the truth. All right? Now, don't say anything. You folks talk out loud, so, you know. Right? Some churches, you don't have to worry. They won't say anything. No, not even amen, right? All right, so don't say anything yet. But do you think you have an idea who they are, the people he's talking about here? Let me take that and let's put it into modern day terms, because I think these people are still around, and put it in in the present. So today, there are, just like then, there are believers, many we don't even know, who travel to represent Christ to all the people of the world. They are worthy of and they depend upon our support. And when we do support them, we become co-workers with them. Who am I talking about? Missionaries, right? Now, a lot of our materials, and you'll hear us use the term global workers a lot, okay? The reason is because a lot of places these people go and work, if they are known as missionaries, they are asked to leave those countries. So we call them global workers because they're out doing global work for the kingdom, right? And this passage talks about these global workers. And I'm not going to talk to you today about the importance of missions. I believe you already understand that. The importance of going into the world and preaching the gospel, and the importance of people answering the call to go do all of that. I think you understand that. I think you support that quite well. But I want to talk about supporting the missionaries, that this is what this passage is about. He's commending them. He's Gaius and his church for doing that. He says, you've done great, for great things about you supporting these people. And you need to continue to do that because it makes you missionaries as well, right? You're co-workers together in all of this. And our ministry, Hiding Place Hollow, okay, here's some pictures over here that you can kind of see a little bit of it. Hiding Place Hollow is a ministry that is dedicated to supporting missionaries and global workers, okay? Now, have you heard this quote before? This is a little bit of a larger quote. Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses. Send these the homeless, the tempest-tossed to me. Now, that's not a verse in the Bible, though it kind of sounds like it might be in some ways. But do you know where that quote comes from? It's the Statue of Liberty, okay? Now, when we hear that quote, we normally think of some refugees some immigrants who've come from some war-torn country or from some impoverished nation trying to make a better life for themselves. And that's what the quote was intended for. But have you ever thought about that is a description of our missionaries? It really is. Okay? Did you know that 50% of all global workers that we send out to spread the gospel, 50% of them, when they come back from their first term, which is 2 to 4 years usually, 50% of them do not return. Okay, because of the stress that they face, the hardships they face, especially today, because today's missionaries are really focusing in, as they should be, on the unreached peoples of the world. Okay? There's a lot of the world that has access to the gospel, but there are certain people groups, many people groups, that no one has ever shared the gospel with them. And missionaries today are focusing on them. Now, that's great that they're focusing on them, but you know the reason they're focusing on them and the reason they're unreached is because it's hard to reach them. Because of the political climate, maybe, or the religious climate of that area, or whatever. They're difficult to reach because it's hard. And so these missionaries are focusing on these hard groups. And so that means life in the ministry of reaching them is very, very difficult. And so when they come home, they are burned out, worn out, discouraged. Many of them are. They're stressed out. Okay? They're discouraged because they feel like they haven't accomplished a lot. Statistics show, and they've done studies, that a missionary usually reaches kind of the sweet spot of their ministry where they really starts kicking in and they really start reaching people around the 7th year. But if most people are never going back for their second term, they're never getting to that second year. You know what most missionaries accomplish in their first term? They learn the culture, and they learn the people, and they learn the language. And a lot of missionaries, maybe the majority of missionaries, never reach a soul their first time. They don't plant a church the first time. Now, you may hear missionaries do that, but they're probably going into a little more open fields that already have some churches. And it doesn't mean they don't need more churches either, though. But many of these workers come from very difficult places, and they come back and they go, well, I'm back, and churches want to hear what we've done, and all we've got to tell them is we've learned how to live there and learn how to speak the language, you know. And unfortunately, a lot of us were all like, that's all, you know. And when we should say, good for you, now you're really ready to go, you know, because it takes a while. So there's a stress assessment called the Holmes and Rye Stress Assessment, where it's like a test you take, and you go through things that are happening in your life, and you mark the ones that are true for you, and there's a point value given to each of these stress factors. And you add it up, and they say if you reach a score of 200 or higher consistently, we all hit 200 from time to time, but if you are living at a 200 score or higher, then you will face some kind of emotional, mental, or physical breakdown. Missionaries, they kind of did a little test on that. Missionaries in their first term were somewhere around 900. Okay? Most missionaries live at constantly about 600. Okay, so you can understand why they come back tired and worn out, stressed out, and they need some time to refresh, okay? And a lot of times they're not given that. I grew up as a missionary's kid in Taiwan on the mission field. I remember when we came home from our first term, actually, it was easier for me to adjust to living over there than it was adjusting back to coming back to the States, really, for me, it was. And there's probably different factors in that, but it's difficult for them and their kids. And I remember coming back and spending the first month living with a pastor who let us live with them, sleeping on their living room couch for the first month we were back. I remember at one time we lived with an aunt and uncle, and I shared a bedroom with 2 cousins and my older sister. Some things like that. Missionaries love to come home and see their families. They love to come home and see their families. They don't want to come home and live with their families, though. And if you think about that, right? You need your own place, your own space. And one of the things, Hiding Place Hollow, what reason we started that is because we kept hearing a lot of stories of missionaries coming home tired and worn out, and they're living from place to place. We heard a missionary just recently, just in the last year, tell us they had lived in how many? 13 different places in less than a year's time. And their kids usually stepped on the floor and those kinds of things, okay? And think about if you come back from, it can be 3 months to a year, your furlough back. You come back for 3 months, 3 to 6 months here in Northwest Arkansas. Where are you going to find a place that'll rent that for that period of time? Plus, are you going to find a place you can afford during that period of time, and so on? So, Mike and Susan Phillips, a couple that are members of Cross Church. This is not a ministry of Cross Church. They're just members there. Friends of ours that we knew from quite some time back. He works for Dick's Sporting Goods, and she's a homemaker. And they love missions, had a heart for missions, and God called Mike. Mike said it felt like I was standing in front of a burning bush. One day at church, he said God spoke very clearly to me that they were to do this. And he says, I want you to build 10 houses in 10 years, and I'm going to help you do all of that debt-free and to minister and to house missionaries. And so Mike and Susan, you know what they did? They said, okay, Lord, just like that. And they went, found some land right about, I looked it up, 9.2 miles from here on Highway 12. Just take 45 till you run into the dead end at the lumber yard and turn back left there, and it'd be about 1.5 miles down your road right down there. Okay, and it's called Hiding Place Hollow. It was 40 acres that they bought. When the day that God told Mike to do this was January 2020. Okay, and why does everybody always go laugh when you say that? Two things is that's 2.5 years, less than 2.5 years ago, right? And no, 3, 2.5 years. I've got my math is not. But it was also right before, what happened a couple of months after that and all that. So, all right. So when you hear what's going on today, think that in mind. They bought the land in April of 2020. So just had it 3 years. The land and it was very, very raw, and there was no roads. Clifty Creek goes through it, but there was no bridge. There was no electricity, water to say, and all of those kind of things, okay? So I'm going to share that with you in a little bit, all right, of exactly what that happened, of what that's all about. But they understood the struggle that missionaries, they heard a lot of missionaries saying how difficult it was, so they felt God calling them to do this, and they willingly stepped out. They bought the original 40 acres themselves, and when they closed on the land, They, by the way, they sold their home and downsized. Their kids had moved off to college, and they were wanting to downsize. And they said, let's downsize, and we'll take whatever we can make off our home, and we'll use that to buy the original property, help start. And when they went to close, it was to the very penny what they had made off their house. Okay? That's one of many stories I could tell you that'll blow your mind. But I don't know. Y'all probably want to eat lunch here. I did come across this verse recently. Psalm 40 verse 5 says this, Lord my God, you have done many things. Your wondrous works and your plans for us, none can compare with you. And if I were to report and speak of them, they are more than can be told. And that's my case here. So that's why I'm trying to figure out how to share with you what I can share with you in a limited time. I don't know how long you normally preach, but I'm going to try to hold it down as best I can. All right, so Hiding Place Hollow is a community. It's more than just a house. It's homes, because there are some churches that have a home, but missionaries want a place of their own to stay, but they also love community with other missionaries. Nobody gets a missionary like another missionary and what they've been through, so they love sharing time together. So it's a community that offers a place of rest and restoration to these global workers as they come home and provide them with a rent-free home to live in there. So they bought the 40 acres, and they began to work. And God began to bring people out of the woodworks to help them. It was announced by the pastor at Cross Church. He just mentioned it in a sermon that this is what Mike and Susan are wanting to do. And people started just calling them. A man literally walked up to them in the foyer of the church, said, I had heard what you're doing. I'd like to help, and handed them a $100,000 check. Okay? Things like that. Just, hey, I'm a contractor. I'd like to help you. I do, just different people began to, or people would say, hey, I know somebody that would love to help. You ought to call them. And they call up people, and through 30-something business partners, it's over 30 now, I don't know how many to name now, 30-something churches that regularly support and have come and helped in various ways, plus countless individuals, a Southern Baptist disaster relief crew. They've come out several times and cleared out the trees in a lot of areas and helped clean up the original land. We have infrastructure. We've got a bridge. We've got roads. We've got sewer and water and electricity and all of those things. All that infrastructure has been built there. Half of our property is on a ridge. We even have a nice paved road up to the ridge because half of our houses are going to be built up on the ridge. We have a beautiful, probably see it over here, peaceful prayer garden that a local landscaper donated and everything for it and built it, and he landscapes all of our homes. Williams Tractor in Fayetteville gives us a new tractor every year. Gives it, and then next year takes it away and brings another new one and replaces it every year. Bentonville Glass provides all the windows and all that kind of stuff for us, both the windows and the labor. Carpet One does all the flooring and the labor. We have an electrician. We have a painter. We buy the paint. We buy the electrical supplies, but they donate and all that. And the cost of the homes are still kind of high, and people say, why are they so high when you get a lot donated? It's because if you look at the pictures there, those are nice looking homes, really nice looking homes. From my own experience and from missionaries, we heard horror stories of homes that churches provide. I've had missionaries tell me when we left, we gifted the church a mattress. That should have embarrassed that church. Because what they're saying is, we couldn't sleep on your mattress, so we're giving one so the next people can't. We've heard of some who slept on the floor. We've heard of, because the mattresses were so bad. We've heard of some whose all their luggage and things in the basement were ruined because of sewage down in the basement. And the church said, oh yeah, that happens sometimes. Some things like that. So Mike and Susan started this. We've joined in with the team, and we agreed totally that these are going to be beautiful homes, nice homes, because where do you go, when you go to rest, you don't go to some dump, you go find a nice place to go and rest, right? So we want them to be as nice or nicer than the homes we live in. So we want everything to be good. Another partner I just thought of, Sam's Furniture, provides not enough to supply the whole house, but a good part. We always, the first thing from Sam's Furniture we get is good mattresses. We did that and couches. That's usually what we get from them, and then and so on. But these are beautiful homes. We were able to add 5 acres, which had a home on it already, and did some remodeling on it. And a caretaker couple, Larry and Paula Shepard, live in that home, and they take care of the land. He's a retired Walmart store manager who retired to Bella Vista and got his second career taking care of the golf courses at Bella Vista. So he knows how to take care of equipment and the land and all that. So he's busy, very busy this time of year, mowing every day. But they live there on the property all of the time. And a whole nother story is how we got involved, but and I don't have time for it. Come see me sometime. Tell me, I'll tell you that story. But it was just nothing but a hand of God that we hadn't talked to Mike and Susan for over 7 years, and was coming to Northwest Arkansas. We had moved away. We lived here 20 years and moved away, and we were coming back in and called them on a whim. Okay, a God whim is what it was, and said, let's have dinner. What are y'all doing? After 7.5 years, we hadn't seen you. What are you doing these days? Well, let's tell you about this vision God gave us, and God then called us to come help. So I retired several years earlier than I planned to in order to do this. Mike and Susan, Larry and Paula, Laurie and I, none of us receive a penny to work with Fellowship. How do you play solo? I don't remember the name either. Hiding place. None of us get a salary. None of us. Every penny that is given goes straight to building homes and maintaining them and all that. So 3 years. We now have 3 completed homes. Well, we have the caretaker home. We have 3 completed homes that our missionaries are living in right now. Some from Asia. They'll be leaving the end of this week. But we already have 2 weeks from now some coming from the Middle East. A family will be moving in that home. We have some from Ukraine who were forced to leave because of the war, a family that is staying in one of those homes. The other home, and a lady who's worked in mainly China, but throughout Asia for almost 40 years, who's retiring, and she's staying there, making a transition back, but still working online with those back in China, helping to translate the Bible stories and the Bible into a very unique language in China that is not in Mandarin, a very smaller language that they've never heard the gospel in that language. And she's still helping them do that even from right here in Arkansas. So we have those 3 that are occupied. They're booked pretty much through the end of 2024. We already have a missionary family booked for 2027 who heard about it, and they're in a week or 2, they're heading back to Indonesia. And they said, we have lived from house to house to house this whole past year while we've been back. So we'll be back in 4 years. So put us down right now because we don't want to do that next time. So that shows you what the need. And we turn people away regularly because we just don't have it. So we have those 4 homes, the caretaker's home and 3 missionary homes. And we have a 5th home that should be open this fall. It's fully funded. We've got all the funding. And again, when I say fully funded, I don't mean like you say it costs so much per square foot to build a house. You're talking about the house is there, then you move in. Remember, these missionaries don't have anything with them. So when we say a house is finished, that means it's completely furnished. And I don't mean just furniture. Think about what they bring back with them. They bring back with them clothes. That's it. Okay? So they need silverware, they need plates, they need pillows, they need sheets, they need bath cloths and bath towels and everything. They need silverware, and we have one in every kitchen, a junk drawer. That's what we call it at our house. It's got scissors and paper clips and markers and all those kind of little things you need, okay? All right? And when they come back, say like this missionary family that's coming here in just a few weeks, that'll be moving into Love Home. We have Love Home, Peace Home, Joy Home, Faith Home, and Hope Home. We hope to open in the fall. That's what we name all the homes. The family that's coming there, I've been in contact with them. They have 3 girls, 3 teenage daughters. And so I said, you're coming, what day? You'll be here on, I think June 13th is the day they're to arrive. And we say, okay, you're kind of out in the country a little bit, so there's not a grocery store nearby, so tell us what are some things you would like on hand when you get there. What are some things that you've missed overseas that you can't get over there that you'd like back here in the States? Kids definitely jump on that one. I remember that. And so she said, we eat pretty healthy, so she gave us all these unfun, healthy stuff. She said, but my youngest daughter, she really does like, what was it? Lucky Charms and something else, another cereal. It was a couple of cereals that she wanted. And so I said, we will make sure that is stocked for you. And I will make sure Lucky Charms are in there because I'm a big cereal fan myself. So that's what I missed most when I was a kid overseas. So anyway, so we have the cupboard full for them when they get there, and usually their home church will help them, will help us do that. Sometimes just we're in a small group at our church at Fellowship Bible where we go in Bentonville, and our small group loaded up one time. We gave them a list of things, and they did about twice that amount of stuff. So now we don't buy their groceries the whole time they're there, but we like to get them started with that. So we want to love on them. We don't want them to not have to worry about things, And I will tell you, the number one reaction when missionaries come is the one we want. It's tears. And we really want tears. I mean, they are blown away. They just weep. And you say, what? We used to ask, what's wrong? And they just say, I'm just overwhelmed, you know. And some of them will say, you know, we've had such a hard time before. We've stayed in such horrible places. This is so restful, okay? So I'm going to tell you real quick a handful of stories that just remind me that it's not just amazing what God has done. It is. But how this is fulfilling the scripture to support these missionaries, okay? Our first missionary that came was a single woman from an unnamed country. She could not name it or risk trouble in the Middle East. Think of a woman in the Middle East right there already, wanting to share gospel with people. Now, that's a dangerous situation, okay? All right. She was brought back early, and she's from the Carolinas. She was brought back to Northwest Arkansas because some trauma had occurred. We have no idea what that was. And she needed counseling. And there was a counselor she was an IMB missionary, and they wanted to send her to a counselor in this area. And she needed a place to stay. So she stayed out there. She was the first one we hosted. She came in very quiet, very sweet, but very quiet. She stayed out there about 4 or 5 months, attended her counseling and stuff, and we just loved on her. And she was a former athlete. In fact, her ministry, the way she gets into the country and makes relationships is through coaching and things like that. So we knew she liked sports. So Laurie and I took her out to a Razorback softball game because she was a college softball player herself, and took her out to eat and did things like that. She needed several times to go to the airport. We took her to the airport. Just little things like that to help her out. The ladies y'all went shopping and went out to eat one day, and a museum and stuff like that. Just help her to relax. She left here, went back to the Carolinas for a couple of months with her family, and she is serving back in the Middle East in her ministry now. Okay? But the neat thing was, I thought, before she flew back to the Middle East, she flew back to Arkansas to have dinner with the Hiding Place Hollow team, and she just talked and talked and talked. Okay? So it was such a blessing to see the difference in her life and the fact that she's back and serving, and it just says that's exactly what we're called to do, right? That's what we're doing. A family from Ukraine, they left because of the war. They ended up living in a one-bedroom basement apartment. They have 2 young girls. The 4 of them were living in a one-bedroom basement apartment in Fayetteville until we could get the house finished. The other house that we were building at that time. We got it done, and we had an open house on Saturday. They were going to move in on Monday. On Saturday, they came to the open house, and one of the little girls brought a little stuffed animal. She went in there because they had been coming by and seeing it, and they knew this is where they were going to live for a while. So she came in, went to her bedroom. There was a bunk bed. She climbed up on the top bunk, pulled the pillow back, and put that little stuffed animal behind it. And the way I call that, she was marking her territory. This is my room now. This is my bed, my place, because she had not had that in months. And she was excited about that. And the first night there, she told her dad, she goes, "Dad, I feel like we're at home." So they're still living there and will be there until about August, and probably they are, because of the war, unable to go back. So they're building a house near Fayetteville that they're moving into eventually. So anyway, so we've given them a place where they can relax, and he teaches in a seminary in Ukraine. So he's still doing it. He goes online and teaches still. So he still continues ministry without being in the danger there for his family. So the family that's leaving this week, they have 3 girls. No, they have 4 girls. 4 girls. They live in Asia, in a large Asian city, in an apartment building. And there's no place to run and play. Y'all know what it's like out over that way. They are loving it. The creek was dry when they first got there, but we had some good rains this spring, and the creek was up. And it was a really cool, almost a cold morning. Their dad said they didn't care. They were out there in their bathing suits jumping in the creek. And so, they were loving, enjoying being out and being able to do that. In fact, the mother actually said this. This is the best advertisement I ever heard for Hiding Place Hollow. She said, "We had somebody offer us a week at a resort in Colorado, but we're going to turn it down because we feel like we're already at a resort already. And why drive all the way to Colorado when we can relax right here at home? So, I could go again. What I could tell you, the stories. I went to Fast Lanes and got free family passes for the missionaries. And they told me every time missionaries come back and get more. We'll supply. But I went and gave it to the different missionary families. But you know what they chose to do? Get together on a night where they could all do it, and they all went together so that all their kids and all could do that. So anyway, those are just some of the stories, things that have happened in the past year since we began to host missionaries that remind me this is exactly what we're about. It's not providing houses. That's kind of what you think of, and that's what we started with maybe, but it's providing homes. It's finding a place where they can rest, relax, restore, and we can pour blessings on them. So we have a newsletter that goes out every month online, so if you'll give Laurie or me your email address, we'll put you on that and you can keep up with what's going on. I just want to share with you some of what we're trying to do right now, where we are and what we're trying to do. This year, for this year, we want to complete Hope Home. That's our first home up on the ridge. We want to get it completed, and hopefully we're going to get that done by September, because we got a family scheduled to come right after that. So we hope to do that. We're always working on keeping the place beautiful and working on making it. Susan's a gardener, and she loves beauty. She says you rest around beauty. She goes, I want it to be like a resort here, So we're working always to beautify and work on those kind of things. We're always doing that, and we hope to, now that we'll have 4 homes occupied, our next project is to build a community building where we can do things. They can do things together. They can worship together. They can have a game night together. Family comes in to visit them. They have room to do something together. We have work crews that come out and help us, and we have to cram them into Paula and Larry's little house, and so we've had like 40, 50 people in there eating lunch sometimes. We'd like to have, so it'd be like a nice big fellowship hall with a fire, kind of a lodge, like a fireplace and stuff. We're going to have a kitchen, a laundry room, a library there for them as well. And so they love to do things together, and this will give us an opportunity to do that. But we also need more housing. So what we're going to do is on the second, over the kitchen, the part over the kitchen and the library and that part, we'll have a second story, and it'll have an apartment up there that a single missionary or maybe even a couple could stay, a 1-bedroom apartment. So it will also be able to provide some housing as well. So we hope to get that started this year. It's a big undertaking. It's a lot bigger. We don't have any water or any electricity run down that far, so a lot of the infrastructure, road, we got a lot of upfront expenses that it's going to take to do that. Fortunately, on the back end, we got a lot of people volunteering to do things, but it's the initial expense. It's getting into that's going to, like, we have a group that's going to come frame it. We just got to have money for all the lumber and stuff to frame it with, and those kind of things, and the money for a slab and all those kind of things. But we're praying God we'll get to start that this year, and by this time next year we'll have that maybe up and running. In the future, we got a lot of kids out there, and I think it's a natural playground anyway, but it'd been nice to have a playground situation for them as well out there maybe. And of course we want to build 4 more homes, because the community building will give us 6 of the 10. Okay? Remember, God said 10 in 10 years. And again, all of this has been done debt free. Okay? All of it. God, somebody says, where do you get the money? God just provides it through churches and through people and through all kinds of ways. But that's what we're about. That's what we're trying to do. That's why we're trying to fulfill what John said to Gaius, to these people. He said, there are these workers who are going out into the world to spread the gospel, to present Christ to people, and they are worthy of, and they depend on our support. And when we do support them, we are co-workers with them. So your church gives a monthly offering, and it helps us because we have the monthly expenses of insurance and utilities and upkeep that come every month. You help us do that. So you help make all the stories. You're a part of that. Because those missionaries and the good stories you've heard is because of you and others who've helped us to do this. Okay? So I hope you will continue to do that. You're not far away, so if you want to come over, and we especially need skilled workers. If you have some building skills, that always is helpful. But sometimes we need workers like me that have no building skills. I'm going to try to think of what the term Mike has made up for it. I'm an CLD, certified limb dragger or something like that. Right? They come in and cut the trees, and I drag the limbs, you know. So we need people like that to help us just clean up, and Larry is mowing all the time. So if you like to mow a lot, we do have one guy that comes over one day a week, and he just takes about 2 hours, and he just mows for us. Keep hitting that. But there's many ways you can help if you want to come by and let us know. Let us know ahead of time, but if you want to come by and look at and tour around and see what it's all about, or just drive by there on Highway 12 and look at it as you go by. But a verse that just keeps coming to my mind throughout all this process, and again, I could tell you the whole story of just the process of how we got involved. It all comes back. I keep Ephesians 3:20. Now to him who is able to do above and beyond all that we ask or think, right? You know, Mike and Susan, when they came home that Sunday and Mike said, Susan, this is what God told me we ought to do, and they had no idea. It was way beyond, right now, it's way beyond what they ever thought. When Laurie and I said, we think God's calling us to do this, and we told God, okay, but there's 5 things that look like barriers to us. They look impossible to us. Those things have got to fall in order for us to do it. And you know what God said? Now, there are times in my life, and I can tell you other stories of where God waited years before he did something I was praying about. But in this case, God said, 5 things that look impossible. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, go. You know, it happened in this case like that. So it was above and beyond anything we've ever imagined. And you know what? You know what the cool thing about that is? That's not just a Hiding Place Hollow story. That's the story for all of us who are followers of Jesus Christ. You know, my mom used to tell me I had a huge imagination. See, this is above all and beyond. Well, I got a pretty big imagination. I can think a lot. And God says, so what? I can beat that. I can go above and beyond that. And he can do that for you too in your life. And listen, God was already dealing with us when we met Mike and Susan. It was obvious. And we had been challenged, for several weeks in a row, before we reconnected with Mike and Susan, we had been challenged to be a part of reaching the world. Not just in the neighborhood, that's a given, but reaching the world for Christ. And we knew, because we prayed about it several times during our lives together, about going on the mission fields, and God's just never made that something he's called us to do. But we were challenged because this person that challenged us, or these people that challenged us, were saying, the call to go into the world is for everybody. Some people go into the world. Others help send those who go into the world. Some help support those who go into the world. There's a place for all of us. Remember what John said? And when you do support them, you're what? Co-workers with them. Okay? So being a missionary doesn't mean necessarily, it does mean, yes, I go across the street, I go to my neighbor, yes, it does mean that. But it also means you go to the world too, through, people. What did John say? Some are strangers you never met. They're strangers, you don't know them, and you may never know them. And they're going to go reach people with the gospel that you will never meet this side of heaven, right? But what God can do when we are open and we think big and we step out in faith and we say, okay, God, do the impossible. He says, just watch what I can do. Okay? So that's my message for you today. Telling you about that, but I challenge you to be a part of Hiding Place Hollow or whatever God has called you to be a part of to get the gospel to the world, because they need that. So I'm going to turn it back to you.
So appreciate that. I've been to Hiding Place Hall, and the homes that they're building are wonderful homes. thankful